Sometime in 1977, I received a call from a contractor who had bought the original Temple Emmanuel synagogue, which was located, I believe, on Belmont Avenue.
It became a Korean church.
It had become a Korean church, and he was about to turn it into a condominium. And he wanted an appraisal so that he could give the windows to a Jewish organization. He was not Jewish himself, but he wanted these windows to end up again in a Jewish environment. So I came home and I was discussing it over Shabbat dinner, and I had brought up the fact that I thought perhaps the Skirball Museum, which was rebuilding, might be interested in Los Angeles. At which point Laurel said immediately, we are building a synagogue. Eventually, that these windows would be a treasure lost forever if we couldn't ingather them, and they're already here in Chicago.
And to use them for the sanctuary, right?
Right, to be able to use them. Rabbi Dresner, with whom we were very close, he had asked Laurel, knowing of her skills as an interior designer, to do a multitude of different tasks, including working with the windows from A to Z, producing a temporary ark for the sanctuary, which...
Well, we were on the basketball.
It was a basketball court until the beam was done. But the question of the windows that they ultimately ended up here was because of Laurel. She felt that even if we had to hold them for a while, they would become part of the package.
What would you say, Aaron?
Well, these are probably one of the finest examples of stained glass from the era when stained glass was top. And I would say they were probably done in the 20s.
Or earlier 19th century turn up, right, Aaron? Yeah, I think that's what was told.
And they're really beautiful renditions. There are several different hands. In other words, they're not all by the same master. There are several different artists who worked on these, and they've obviously manifested themselves in a beautiful imagery, which is biblical and certainly belonging in a sanctuary such as ours.
So, as Arthur said, you could see the different hands because some of them have frames around them, more elaborate than others, and some are just without framing, just with a nice bevel. The one that is across from this, Arthur, you want to talk about that Tiffany light with the columns? Did you see that one? Where the blessing...
That's the Abraham blessing of
Isaac. And with the palm tree in the back and the walk, it's very detailed. So, and it has the columns and it has a pediment at the top.
It's very architectural in a classic sense, so that you're looking into a view. In Italian, they call it a vedute. It's the view into the glass. And that one in particular is a very fine example.
That is, I think, one simple portable, but then we put it into the small sanctuary. So I think the use of, the stained glass windows, the iconography are of old, even though they may not be so old. They evoke that feeling of the 19th century, and maybe to other people beyond, going back to Torah. And the use of the royal colors, and everything is done with symbols of Israel, from the pomegranate and the birds, and the svi, the deer from the Simcha wall, and the structural setup, the actual space, even though it's very contemporary, you still evoke, just by these spindles on the bima, of shuls of the past. So I think that's the combination. Wouldn't you say, Eric?
To answer your question, there is a thread of Jewish art, architecture, and history in everything here. And it's a question of taking a step back and analyzing it. But that was the original, I think, dictate from Rabbi Dresner, translated by Laurel, and then
And Phil
Phil
Kupritz.
Kupritz, and the builder, and Sonia Block. I mean, there were a lot of people who were, but the seminal words were Rabbi Dresner's. And he had, obviously, once he had this congregation, this doesn't have, he did a lot of innovative things in terms of the Havarah group, which is, unfortunately,
I was chairman, he called me, I was head of the, he said, Laurel, I don't want a men's club or a sisterhood, which that's what he came from. And he said, I want people to meet each other, do the holidays together, do Simchas together, do Nats and, happy times together, and then contribute a holiday to the synagogue. And so when people would come in, he would call me and say, okay, we have new members. Which group? I think they would be good in this group. What do you think? And they replaced
it wasn't an elitist
or
thing.
formed
It was just the idea of
new
common
groups.
interest.
And it was a wonderful thing. And we studied together. It was for study, taking holidays, and friendship, and connecting. Rather than as a member coming in and not knowing anybody, you were
part of
of it.
So if you had a simcha or if you had a sad occasion, you already had a mini group.
Our group, our Havarah, we were in charge of Purim. And it was
we were
wonderful.
called Shalchabed.
We were the
Sparky's
Shalchabed.
group.
And we studied. We studied with Rabbi Dresner. We studied with, throughout the years after Rabbi Dresner left, Rabbi Frank studied with us for a while, and then we had other people. There was a Havarah to this day from the founders that still meet. I think they're the only ones. The Lewises are involved.
The oldest.
And
we were the
well,
older.
I don't want to make the
we were
Michael
the
the
we were the
oldest.
young marrieds
But-
with children.
Right.
That was.
But they still meet. They still study. They obviously they don't. The Gettlemans. I don't want to name names because then I'm going to forget. But it was a wonderful thing that Hav wrote. The old
Beside that,
synagogues.
I think Rabbi Dresner wanted it to be as if it was a community. He didn't want to
Not
have
a
the
stage.
traditional stage pulpit where everybody sits in front. You go to many synagogues. There are a series of chairs. There are two pulpits, one as a reading desk, and one is the speaker's
It's
desk.
kind of like a stage, wasn't it? An
And-
American.
But it was a change. It was a Protestant thing, and what he wanted was to have something that was
back to the
obviously Jewish, and the idea of community worship. So no matter where you are in this sanctuary, you're close to when they read Torah. You're close to being able to get up. You can see from either side, and you can participate. And the fact that they move it all the way back further so that there's participation, so that when they have the high holidays, it's not just up front so the few people see it. It's moved substantially back.
And if you visit the synagogues that were done in the 1950s, 40s, 30s, in here, except for like Frank Lloyd Wright, Elkins Park, well, no, that's still done.
That's traditional.
That's a different kind of setup. But the setups were with the stage, and this is more like how the older synagogues were done. And people should look into synagogue architecture. There's beautiful books, and so this is to invoke the same kind of
Community
feeling.
worship
Yeah,
is what
community
Sam
worship,
had
yeah.
in mind.